made contact the way the English made contact way back when. Shout out to my forebearers. We go and they're talking about them being hostile entities trying to take stuff. I'm simply saying they're the imperialists here.
I just love how they brought it up. They're like, hey.
Which is why we need a stronger Commonwealth, which is why everyone should make sure they have their titles, and why I want to see the royal family expand, not shrink.
I just love you brought that really well round, actually. That was a great segue back to your point. I just want to state that I love how when they brought the dude to sit in the chair in front of Congress to talk about it, he's like, have we talked to aliens? No. But we've communicated in a way that they're not really trying to hide from us, which is quite concerning.
Why would they need to hide from us?
But that's my point.
We are the weakest species, clearly.
We don't want to know that. We want to think we're on top for those reasons.
We can't stop fighting amongst ourselves. We've yet to figure out how to harness the power of our own sun. And we are still fighting over bits of dirt. It was well put by William Shatner. When he went out to space, they actually sent Captain Kirk into space, bless them for it.
Yeah.
And he looked down and he realized that that is the only thing keeping us alive. Everything beyond Earth is desolate and dead and hostile towards us. There is nowhere else for us to survive. We need to stop fighting over little patches of dirt.
Probably a good idea.
So give it all to England.
No, don't give it all to England. Jesus.
Well, America clearly can't govern themselves.
America will take it, though, inevitably. I feel like at the end of the day, we're going to end up with
Which is why
two
the Commonwealth
global
needs to
superpowers.
expand.
You're just too polite. You're too nice.
Have you never read a history book?
In modern times, you're too polite and nice.
Have you never read a modern book?
I don't know if I have read any modern books recently. I'm not much of a reader.
I'm going to welcome our guest.
Please do. And for everyone who's on the live stream, before we bring in our guest, please, hey, go check out the link in the bio if you want to listen to everything.
You can also write in and talk to us while we're on the show.
While you're on the live stream, again, K4HD TV, you can write in the comments, but we'll see you guys there. Awesome.
You want to welcome?
Yes, please. Welcome to the show. Lee Tink, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. I love your chair.
Thank you.
The first thing I want to point out is the chair.
Yeah, I got the memo on the wingback chair, so
I like that.
Yeah, I think that played out well.
Big ass wingback chairs. Well, it looks like I'm entering a very spicy conversation. I like it. Think. Not the same kind of fists are flying that you normally have, Bear, but I like it. I like it.
No, it's been from the beginning till now, it's been back and forth. And what I've come to understand is that she wants to march over American land and soil and give it back to the fascists. What are you guys, imperialists of England?
Why is England doing such a great job at running their country at the moment?
No, but the Commonwealth, I think America should be drawn into the Commonwealth.
To what end? To what's the benefit?
So when you look at a sustainable global superpower or a sustainable global situation, politically, America's system isn't sustainable. Same as Rome. Eventually, when you have two parties, you consistently start putting in the lesser of two evils versus a person who's best for policy. Rome's system showed that. America itself is a very, very strong country, and it does have colonies that it's done well with. But when you have countries expanding through Southeast Asia and unrest in the Middle East, by the United States aligning itself with the Commonwealth, you have stronger global goals and a similar global viewpoint. I think it strengthens position, it strengthens trade. And it strengthens our ability to protect countries like what's going on in the Middle East, and with Tibet having been taken, and what looks like it's going to be the loss of Taiwan.
I hit people. Can you make it stupider for me?
By people with similar morals aligning, we can stop bad people from doing dumb shit.
I think the fallacy, though, is I look at UK leadership and I go, that ain't it. Like they're letting the country be overrun. I actually think I had a conversation with a couple of friends of mine that are Brits, and I said to them, this was months ago when I started seeing what's going on, and I said, where are your patriots? Where are your patriots? You're letting a city like London be totally overrun. The police are cowed.
Always goes back on a pendulum. Right now, they've got what you would call liberal, what we would call just kind of left, essentially government. It swings back. It has for centuries. And so think of it like New York in the 80s. You had it overrun with crime. Then you have Giuliani, someone like Giuliani step in, it gets conservative. Then you have liberal governments step in and the policies become socially looser. Then they go back and forth, and that actually keeps a lot of balance. Hence, we've got 900 years of it.
I'd want to see a trajectory towards sanity before I would even entertain it. I would say here in the US, we're now moving more towards a trajectory of sanity. I think the other thing, again, that my comment to my British friends were, where are your patriots? Their response was that that ideology has actually been diminished in England, that the patriots have been suppressed. And I know what is always given me kind of peace of mind here in America, and despite people, of what's going on in here in America over the last years, and over the last year, and I've talked to lots of friends, and some people are like, well, no, you got to leave. I don't think that's the case at all. What I know, because I'm acutely aware of what the fabric of this country is, we have an immense group of patriots that don't, can I curse on here? That they do not fuck with what's going on and what's been going on. And either it's going to change one way or another, but the patriots here, we have enough patriots that we won't allow it. I'm not sure I've seen the same evidence of that in England.
I think the biggest thing with England and Australia and a lot of the Commonwealth is the diminishment of the royal family. And I hate to put it that way, where Americans seem to worship politicians in a different way. Our focus was on the royal family. I think one of the biggest problems we've had is the former prostitute known as Meghan Markle turned Duchess. I'm not joking. She made a lot of money.
I don't know about anything about it.
There are photos. But she essentially, by accusing the royal family of racism, by going on international television and lying, it's all been proven. Oprah actually had to pull the interview because it made Oprah look like a jackass, which pissed off Hollywood because they like her. So it's by the never complain, never explain is very, very beneficial to a degree. But there needs to be a point, I think, where they push back. And what a lot of Europe's done is shrink the monarchies. And I think that's a negative in this particular case, because our patriotism was always built behind our royal family. When you look at World War II, they asked the Queen Mother to take the children out of the UK. And she said, no, the children will not leave England unless I do. I will not leave England unless the king does. And the king will not leave England under any circumstance. And so that is what built pride in the Commonwealth.
Well, we need something to return there, to have good, proud Brits stand up for their country, their legacy, their history, and frankly take a leadership role in the EU, in Europe, not the EU, but you just look at it. You have countries like Poland and Hungary taking much more of a stance to kind of protect what they're about than countries like England and France. So
I agree. I did find it interesting when when Russia invaded the Ukraine. Germany's like, right, we haven't had a standing army in forever. We're getting a standing army now, and the world went, yay! We're not. This didn't work out well twice before, but sort of, yay, you're the hero. Good job, but should we be a little worried? It's like.
There's a lot. I think there's a lot of other things to worry about at the moment. So
agreed.
Anyway, but great to be here, guys.
Well,
no, right. That's a great intro to having
political debate. This isn't even a political show.
Would you do us a quick flavor here and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I have had a lot of different careers. I think I've turned kind of the art of transformation into kind of a steady part of my history. I started in a career that I almost barely remember. I was a prosecutor in New York City, in Brooklyn, for 3 years, and then decided that I wanted to be in the music business, and kind of bulldozed my way in. Didn't know anybody, didn't know what anybody did, but I was always in bands, always a big fan of music, and wanted to do something that I thought was lucrative. And I thought, well, I think people make money in the music business and it seems like fun. And so I kind of talked my way into a record label, and fortunately had a pretty meteoric rise once I got in there. And eventually I became president of Capitol Records, I ran Virgin Records before that here in the U.S., not the British one. Ran a few other smaller labels, and hallmark of my record label, the record label part of my career was breaking artists. The very first artist I broke kind of 6 months into my career was Kid Rock. The last artist I broke on my way out the door at Capitol was Katy Perry. Broke a lot of artists in between, 30 Seconds to Mars, Simple Plan, KT Tunstall. I don't think I'd be able to remember all of them off the top of my head. Then went into management, moved out to LA, went and managed a bunch of artists. Eventually, actually managed Kid Rock for about 7 years. So that was nice. He and I have had a pretty amazing relationship as both kind of working together and friends up until now. I think I actually posted a picture after Trump won of I met Trump with Kid Rock in Nashville earlier this year, and then got connected to gaming and esports. When somebody showed me an article about gaming and esports, I'd never heard the word esports before. And it was an article about kind of massive viewership. The way the article went was this finals of the League of Legends tournament was only second to the Super Bowl as far as audience. And I'd never heard of the word esports. Yeah. And this was years ago. This was maybe 9 or so years ago. And I thought, okay, let's go try this. Let's go take a look. If there's something this big, I've always been kind of student of pop culture and a student of what goes on in entertainment. Signed a group of guys that were well known within gaming, unknown anywhere else, called FaZe Clan. Kind of a group of gamers, was not really a business. And after kind of consulting with them for a couple of years, decided, okay, I'm going to go full time into this space with these guys. We turned this brand into a juggernaut. We turned it into really a global phenomenon. I would say, one of, if not the biggest youth culture brands of the last number of years. And we, again, went from nobody understood what we were doing to cover of Sports Illustrated, Nike shoe sponsors like Porsche and McDonald's and a list of others, and took the company public a few years ago. And I parted ways with the company last September, and spent about a year on activism and kind of figuring out, all right, what's the next transformation?
You're going to come join me in MMA Television Interactive.
Okay.
I got a big thing coming up in Nigeria. We're working with a bunch of the families there.
Okay. I've never been to Nigeria, but I'm down.
Perfect.
So
okay, I'm on board.
He said it here. This counts. This is legal. I'm taking him. Are you kidding? He's brilliant. I know half the people I know worked over at Capitol. You survived there. That makes you one of the best producers. I'm not kidding. That makes you one of the best producers in the world. And if you can manage musicians and stuff, like, hear me out. I love your manager, but my God, you're tough. Like.
Well, because I will tell you, and I know a lot of people in entertainment that manage different things. I think there's nothing like managing an artist, because you really are kind of CEO of their entire enterprise. And if you have a big artist, it's really an enterprise. If you think about the tours, the records, all that. Mm-hmm. And so I actually think that the toolkit that the music industry overall gives you is unparalleled. I've always hired ex-music people in other companies of mine, and there's just it's a very sharp-elbowed group, right? Like it's sharp-elbowed. You have to be scrappy, and you have to do it with almost no resources, right? Especially on the management side, it would be the same drill all the time. I would walk into a meeting, there'd be 9 people on the other side of the table, and there'd be me and my assistant, or me and somebody work. And that was it. Every phone call was so you just had to be a different kind of animal to deal with.
One of my top producers. I love him. His name's Todd Hahn. our interview went as far as he said, I used to manage Motley Crue. We're done. We're hired.
Yeah.
I need to know we're good.
I know Tommy, like I knew Pam back when, like,
Yeah.
That don't tell.
I
Say less. Like we're good. Like, that was it.
That's insane, dude. So from music to video games now to fighting, like I'm sure you hit that moment in life where you're like, this is what I'm gonna do. But 5-year-old you, I can't imagine was thinking that he was gonna be the head of Capitol Records. So I'm curious, where was that moment of like, all right, this is exactly what I'm gonna hop into?
I think for a lot of my career, I just was like going forward. I think what's interesting, and maybe this is why I've done different things, is I've never had a destination. I had a kind of a very simple philosophy, which was good path, bad path. Am I on a good path that leads to other opportunities, other things that are exciting, or am I in a bad path with fewer opportunities, fewer interesting things? And that was it. And so, look, and I think also, I grew up in Queens. I was born to kind of a lower middle class neighborhood. I'm first generation American. Like, I'm a product of the American dream, which is also why I'm such a patriot. But I think the other thing, and this is maybe my advice to other young people, is if I shot for a destination, I would have undershot. I would have done less than what I've ended up doing because I didn't have the audacity to dream that big. I just didn't. And I didn't know anybody. Like, the most successful person I knew was my dad, who had built kind of an amazing business as an immigrant. But that was really it. I didn't know anybody in any other field or anything like that. I didn't even know that you could love your job. I didn't even know that was a thing, So I think I would have undershot. Yeah. If I could go back and tell my 12-year-old self or 15-year-old self that I would make a living off of working with artists and frankly, even I've had the privilege of working with artists that I revere, right? Like I did a record with Lenny Kravitz. Lenny Kravitz is like one of my all-time, maybe my number one favorite artist of all time. And I got to work with him. And that was, I can't believe
also one of those people that does not disappoint. Like, you meet those artists that disappoint you, you're like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
He not disappoint.
No, he's one of one. He's amazing musically, as a person, as a human being, He
doesn't disappoint. Now, Bear's audience, I'm going to say this, is pretty much Gen Z, Gen Alpha. And all young guys. What advice would you?
Well, they know FaZe Clan for sure.
Well, that's what I wanted to say. Is I told you when I first met you, and I'll tell you right now, as I'm looking at our live comment stream, they're talking about FaZe Clan. They never knew you. They the head or the person who started the whole thing. So they just they love the product. I hate to call it a product, but they love what you've created, what you've crafted.
Yeah. Well, look, I didn't start the brand. Funny enough, the rest of the co-founders also didn't start the brand. Like, the brand was started by 3 guys that were kind of in and out pretty quick, and then other people came in at different times, added different components to it. And
think of it like McDonald's.
What's that?
Think of it like McDonald's. Sometimes a good product needs the right person to promote it, the right people to be the face of it. It's a great start, but you've got to have the right people to grow. You do.
Well, look, I had a philosophy behind it of, this could be like, a lot of what I spoke about is, at the time when I got into gaming was just not respected at all. And it didn't sit around the cultural table, is how I thought about it. You had all of these other kind of big cultural, verticals of music, film, television, sports, fashion, even I put there. And gaming was kind of off in a corner, not respected, despite how the audience was huge. And, there's a lot of, and I don't want to digress into my philosophy of why that was, but it was just not really respected. And for me, as somebody who, I think that I've been a cultural driver, I've been, I've helped to bring brands to life and add to, artists' brands in terms of their expression and how to build their fan base. And so it was really the same thing. Like, all the skills that I did with artists, that's how I looked at FaZe Clan. I looked at them as bringing something cultural. It wasn't just the esports, like there's a competitive side of gaming on the esports side, but the other part was cultural, and gaming was driving the culture. At least at that time. I think now gaming has lost something a little bit. Like they I think also games, for some reason, there hasn't been a new hit game in really a long time, since Fortnite. That's really done something new and galvanized people. But in our era, at our height, we were driving culture. We were driving youth culture and doing things that like nobody expected from a brand like ours.
I think a big, I'm going to have you read off the comments. We've got people asking if you like Linkin Park. What's the one down in the Force?
I want to say, because I thought that was so cool that we have one of our people on right now talking about how his goal, his dreams is to actually make content and work with the FaZe YouTubers, the brand you created.
You've got a lot of fans here.
You really do.
And I got to say, I think micro gaming and the phone gaming has affected my friends, like over at Blizzard, people I know, even when we look at some of the guys that do the UFC games, there's been kind of a downward trajectory, the same as there has in television, which is kind of my neck of the woods, because it's difficult to get people to congregate around one thing anymore, because everything's so niche. We all have our favorite YouTubers we follow. It's not like, back then where you had a driver. And so everything, even when we sell fights, when we sell shows, we have to hit each individual group and pull them in, where there used to be larger cultural drivers. Like back in the day, what was it? Baywatch got a ridiculous amount of views, where today it wouldn't, because there's more to watch, there's more to do. We all have our favorite things. And there hasn't been a game that pulled on the cultural zeitgeist the way that Minecraft or Fortnite has. There's just
that's really it. I mean, because I think I agree with you. That had been the trend on almost every other entertainment, right? There were some artists who could, like Taylor Swift, that galvanized a huge group of people, but that was the anomaly. But we bucked the trend. Gaming was bucking the trend. Gaming was magnetizing all of this audience, bringing them around this it was almost like the biggest secret club in the world or something. Like it was like gamers knew and nobody else did. And Fortnite is what really transformed it and brought it into more mainstream. I think also FaZe Clan, I think what we did, we brought gaming into the mainstream by doing and it's funny when, we were working on getting the Sports Illustrated opportunity, we had that opportunity. What's really funny is this disconnect between kind of even our gamers, even my co-founders and us that were they didn't get Sports Illustrated. They didn't understand why. And it's funny. It's like a bummer that Banks, I think he still regrets that he didn't even do the cover. We wanted him on the cover. He didn't think it was important, but what they missed was it was this marriage of this new media sphere and the traditional media sphere that was really explosive. Because, granted, all of the traditional, all of those things are losing audience, but it's still massive. And it's so.
And you hit the nail on the head. You guys are Taylor Swift. I mean, that is the best. That is the best. You know what I mean?
Not in that way. So I don't,
Yeah,
we're cooler than that, but.
But that's it. She does exactly that, and so do you. Which is, you hit the traditional media, you hit the new media, you pulled along those lines. And I think a lot of the people coming up now don't have the ability to reach into old media. And a lot of old media the guys I work for, bless them, I love them. But they call me to ask why the Google isn't working. Yeah. They run studios. These are the studio heads. They've been there forever. They're brilliant, and their knowledge is invaluable, but they don't know new media.
Yeah.
And the young guys coming up don't know old media. And for you to be able to marry that is how you create a cultural phenomenon.
Well, I love that. I always like doing things new. I also like both disruption and creating evolution. And so I do feel like I've been able to sit in this rarefied place of spending a lot of time in the traditional entertainment space, and then spending and helping to build this new era. And so that, again, it's when I think about this, my kind of schizophrenic career history, like I love how those pieces interplay.
Together.
You know?
Well, look at it like what is it? Rock music has no place now. It's harder to produce. You don't have any big bands coming up. It's because it's people that have to get together, create the music. It doesn't have the same audience that it used to. It can't be one person, you know, being recorded, touched up, and sent out. It's much harder to get out there. Anything that requires that level of work isn't sold that way. And what you did required that level of work. So I think what the industry, just on my end, should learn from it is those collaborative ideas still work, and maybe we should put more time into them.
Well, look, I won't give up on the future of rock music. It's been a long, empty road for the last,
Stain was the last hit on the charts in 2002. That is like, let's not talk about how long ago that is.
No,
it was the last one to chart. It's been a while because we talked about that the other day.
Wait, which record was that?
Stained, It's Been a While was the last one to chart that high, and that was
we had some I did 30 Seconds to Mars after that. Like I think we broke 30 Seconds to Mars in maybe 04, 05, and that was so that was I do feel like I was able to participate in like the last gasps of rock music.
Right.
I love rock. Like it was.
Yeah, it's just been, it drove me to country. Like I had never listened to country my whole life, really. And then finally, I was like, all right, I'm done waiting for rock. Let me start the rock side of country. And now I've become a huge country fan because at least they're doing songwriting. It's musicianship. It's different than what kind of the pop and the EDM music is.
I just listen to underground stuff from the UK. That's all I have left.
I wanted to ask, actually, do you find a particular genre or artist easier to work with than other genres?
It really depends on individually. Like rock used to be easier to navigate from a business standpoint because you could grassroots it. Pop was always really hard. Pop is always the biggest risk, the biggest financial investment. The records cost more. The producers are all expensive. Taking a shot to go break a pop record is really expensive because there is no like grassroots pop movement. So you have to kind of explode on the scene, and all that is risk, right? Now, the record business these days is they don't really take the risk because there's a lot more data available than there used to. There was like no data. When I was running record labels, we didn't have data. It was all kind of instinct and belief. And I think those of us that were like, I think I look back at my track record at being like, almost like a baseball player, like 300. I was batting 300, which that is so you can have an incredibly successful career batting 300, which means you're wrong most of the time, right? Like it's the kind of thing that I would tell people who would play me a demo and whatever, and I'd want to let them down easy. I'd never bullshit anybody because I don't think it helps them. So, I would say, I'd give them whatever my feedback is. And if I didn't think it was like strong enough or whatever, I would say, hey, look, I don't think so. But, I'm wrong most of the time. I'm really good at picking, but I'm wrong most of the time, which is part of the maddening, part of being in the music business.
I think what did they say? It used to be, and I could be, my friend Gloria was over at Capitol, probably under you. She's up there now with the execs. But she said you had a couple of different roads when you're looking at pop. You could do like Taylor Swift, go from country, transition. You can do, you can kind of transition in, or you can fuck really, really well and hope that someone gives you a shot. And I'm looking at her and I was like, that is rude. She's like, I'm not joking. It doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter whether, it's sex or favor, whether you're writing songs for someone, you are selling something to get that shot. And when you get that shot, you better make it good because you're getting it once. I was like, okay. That's
really
fair.
cutthroat, honestly.
Yeah.
They make us look nice. Are you kidding? They make us look nice. We're the good guys. No offense.
Fortunately, when the Me Too movement and all that stuff happened, I was calm as a cucumber because we were not up to any shenanigans, thankfully. So.
No, absolutely. I like to hear that too, especially considering all the latest stories about different artists coming out. And
what saddens me is the best in pop was Dr. Luke, and he's had nothing but
Dr. Luke. I'm sorry.
He did the first two, the big Katy Perry singles.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Those were Dr. Luke.
You want to break this
very
down?
expensive, you know.
Yeah.
And Katy Perry was dropped by 2 labels prior to us signing her. Like that was, you know, that was when you could take a risk and work to crack the code, and we cracked the code.
I Kissed a Girl was the one that just made
that
her.
Was it. I put that on the record. That was almost
genius. Absolutely genius. Perfect for the time. Like brilliant, especially because that was when the whole every young girl was experimenting with bisexuality was got like that was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Well, let's hit this. Why? Why did you make that decision?
So we had a young A&R kid. He's not so young anymore. Great kid, Chris Anacute, that was putting together the record, and we were listening to what had been kind of assembled as the loose record, and we were debating the first single. And first singles are always monumentally important. There's nothing. First singles are different. The sort of criteria is different about why. Like it has to both encapsulate the artist and stamp what it is, and it has to accomplish a lot and cut through. And we were listening to all these songs, and like I didn't think we had it. We were debating. We had Hot and Cold cut, which was also Dr. Luke, which became a hit later, and that was it. And I know my feeling was it didn't feel like it was a slam dunk for a first single. And look, you never have a slam dunk. So I went and sat with Chris, and he played me all the other demos that we didn't fully cut. And so he's playing me a bunch of them. And then he plays me I Kissed a Girl. And I was like, geez, and especially the demo was like edgy. It was super edgy. Like I remember my comment was, and this was a different time where he mattered. I said, I could almost picture Marilyn Manson singing over these guitars. Like the guitars were super.
Oh my God, that would be fun. Like he did with Taylor. Sorry.
Well, I just felt like it was cool. Like that, the song was cool. The riff was cool. The challenge was it was a Dr. Luke song. It was very expensive. We made the decision to cut Hot and Cold. I mean, like when I say expensive, it was like $250,000. And now after that, he succeeded with that, he wouldn't even produce a track unless it was assigned to his label. But, you know, I listened to it and I just was like, that song just sounds too good. And I remember I called the manager and I said, you're going to think I'm crazy. Like it felt a little crazy at the time. And I said, I think it's I Kissed a Girl. I think that's it. I think we should cut that song. And then we also put out like this EP that had a song called You're So Gay. And it got a little play. It was meant to like warm it up, and we did a video, and she performed it on Carson Daly. And then we were debating, well, do you follow up a You're So Gay song? It was like You're So Gay was more about like, you know, she was kind of giving a hard time to like guys that were a little, like, I guess the term back then was metrosexual. Yeah. That way, an old term for your Gen Z, Gen A folks of like guys that were, you know, a little too caught up with some things that weren't necessarily seen as masculine. And so that was it. And we were like debating it, and we were just like, you know what, let's just pick this great. And I was kind of adamant that this is a song, we've got to do it. And thankfully it worked.
Well, you made her a star, because I can tell you, I was in high school and finishing school when this came out, and we are supposed to be very proper girls. What you got everyone there was like I kissed her, like it was, and I think it did encourage some lesbianism. I was at a private girls' school, and points to it.
Music has that effect. Culture has that effect. That's why culture is so important. You know, it changes people's minds. So, you know,
it's incredibly important.
You seem to have been, I understand. You seem to have been kind of like that forefront of culture and kind of getting people's faces, whether it's been in music or other forms of entertainment. So I think as we're getting close to the end of the show, I start finishing it out. I want to know, what would be your advice to anyone who wants to kind of break into and maybe take on one of the roles you did or currently do and get in people's faces with a product or a person?
Look, I think getting in people's faces is key, right? Like, you have got to be, no matter what you want to do, being assertive is going to be your best road forward. Having strong opinions, while could be controversial or people might think you're difficult or whatever, like, that's how you accomplish things. Like, taking a stance, being assertive, making your feelings known. Like, if people who go along with everybody else, they stay in that pool with everybody else. And the people that are willing to champion their ideas, and frankly, whether they're unpopular, whether they're risky, whether they're like, that to me also, like, when I think about all of the biggest successes that I've had, they've all been dark horse candidates. They've all been ones where conventional wisdom was, this is not going to work, which is maybe I especially like that. Like, I love, like, if you're going to say to me, no, you can't get that done, I'll be like, hold my beer and watch. Like, it's so I think I tend to gravitate to that, but that's also like where you can make magic happen in places that people don't see. And so I would say, believe in yourself, like, have convictions about your own thoughts and your own beliefs, and go fight for that. Now, don't invent conviction. You have to actually have it. You can't, that's one where, there's a lot of things where you can fake it till you make it. But if you're going to champion ideas, you sort of can't fake that. You better believe, because ultimately, what are you trying to succeed with if not your faith in fill in the blank, and then take that faith, put it on your back, and barrel through.
I think that is the best thing. Yeah, that is. We've been on air for 12 years, and I got to tell you, that is the best statement I've heard. What is it? This went from like Sirius. We've been on Sirius XM, 640 AM. Like we've been on forever, and I got to tell you, in 12 years, that is the best statement, the best ending statement I've ever heard.
Thanks.
You've got to have real conviction. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Oh yeah.
I know they wanted to ask a question. We have about 3 minutes left. Can you please tell everyone where to find you on social media?
Sure. Basically at Lee Trink on every platform except TikTok is at Lee.Trink, but my main platform is Instagram. That's where I do most of my content. And yeah, at Lee Trink.
I love that. Check like information about things you have upcoming, what you're doing, new projects, things of that nature, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. Like, again, I've spent the last year dedicated to activism, and now I actually have a startup that I'm gonna launch. I'm doing yet another transformation into more of the tech world. I've been very focused on AI and thinking about how AI is both going to disrupt businesses, augment businesses, and create totally new industries. And I think it's going to do all of those things. So I'm very excited about kind of my first AI startup. I won't bore you with it, but it's in legal tech. It's like kind of giving access to the little guy to kind of have access to justice. The name of the company and brand is called Flash Justice, but nothing to do. It's like we're not launching until next year, but I guess I'm going back to my legal roots and just again doing something I have conviction over, right? Which is
that makes sense. No,
I'm going to rope him. I'm going to rope him into coming and helping us with the Children's Hospital in Nigeria. So just.
Cool. I'd love to do
that. Of activism, right?
Yeah, I was like, that's what I'm trying to track you into in Nigeria.
Right on.
I love that.
Man. I was just thinking, we spent all this time talking about the things you have done, and we totally did forgot to talk about that project we do coming up with the Flash Justice, and I wanted to ask questions about that. So if it's okay with you, we'd love to have you back on at a future date to go over that.
I'd love to. I'd be down, totally down, for sure.
We'll have you on.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. We didn't get to a lot of the questions. I know a lot of Bears guys were asking questions. We'll get to that next time. I got caught up.
Let's do another one. Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
I got caught up talking to you. I really enjoyed this. Thank
Same.
you so much for joining us. And thank you for
Absolutely.
giving everyone into an insight into what it really takes to get anywhere. It takes backbone. Like really, it's something that's hard to stress is you got to have guts to the point of stupid sometimes. And it works.
Well, you have to be willing to be called stupid. You have to be willing to appear foolish, to have conviction, to prove people wrong. And this is something, it's kind of unparalleled to prove people wrong, especially when you do it over and over again.
I like that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Guys, make sure you are following him. He's incredibly transformative. More than that, if you want to look at somebody who's successful, we all watch these videos. I see you guys, especially you young guys, are online looking at like how to pick up girls, how to be successful, how to do all of that. Look to the people before you that have done well.
Yeah.
And they'll all have one thing in common. They're willing to take risks.
Yeah, stand as the kids say today, stand 10 toes down on business. I'm jiggy with it and hip.
Yep, you're down. You have the 411. Anyway, I'm the Baroness.
Oh, man.
This is my co-host, Bear Fiorda. Thank you for joining us on Behind the Scenes, talking a little bit about royalty, a little bit about politics, a bit about culture.
Yes.
We'll be talking a little bit about fighting coming up. And of course, Bear has a fight coming up. This is Behind the Scenes. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Good night.
This has been Behind the Scenes with Summer Helene and Bear Fiorda. Only on Talk 4 Media.